You're not being overlooked because you lack substance. You're being sorted before you get a chance to prove it. People decide what you are in seconds, then everything you say gets filtered through that decision. That's why you can show up prepared, speak clearly, and still get interrupted, second-guessed, or treated like you're trying too hard. In this video, I'll show you the hidden variable that triggers that snap judgment, and a simple way to test what signal you're giving off so you stop paying for a label you never agreed to. You've seen it happen. You walk into a room, you say one normal sentence, and the reaction is already locked in. Someone talks over you. Someone smiles like you're asking for permission. Someone answers the point you didn't make because they decided what you are before they listened to what you said. That decision isn't mystical, it's fast. Think about how you judge a stranger in a doorway, or how you read an email from the subject line and the first 8 words. When information is thin, the brain grabs the easiest pattern available. Not because people are evil, because speed beats accuracy when the cost of being wrong feels low. Here's the part people miss, that snap judgment can happen in about 100 milliseconds. Not, they got to know you. Not, they understand your character. It's closer to a label sticker slapped on a folder. Competent, anxious, defensive, safe, uncertain. Then every detail after that gets interpreted through the sticker. Same words, same idea. Different treatment. This is why you can be right and still lose the moment. You're arguing content while they're reacting to a signal. And signals don't announce themselves. They show up as tiny choices you don't notice because they feel like just you. For example, a pause at the start of your sentence can land as thoughtfulness in one person and hesitation in another. A soft voice can read as calm, or it can read as permission to ignore you. Even the way you end a sentence matters. If your tone lifts like you're leaving the door open, people often walk through it. If it closes clean, they adjust. None of this means you should perform. That's the wrong takeaway. The point is simpler and more fair. When you don't know the mechanism, you assume the verdict is about your value. You start over-explaining. You tighten up. You get louder, or you disappear. Now you're reacting to a reaction, and the spiral looks like confidence issues, when it's really confusion. Once you see the mechanism, something changes. You stop taking the first response as a final sentence. You stop treating one interruption as proof that you're not respected. You start treating it as feedback about a variable you can test. In the next part, I'm going to show you why none of their business can be true and still cost you in real life. Because even when you refuse the game, you're still standing on the same field. You can already hear the pushback. Why should I care what people think? You shouldn't, if all you mean is approval. But that's not what this is. This is about navigation. Because you don't live in your intentions. You live in the outcomes they create. In real life, none of their business doesn't stop the interaction. It just changes the cost. You can be completely private, completely principled, completely uninterested in being understood, and still watch your day get harder because the room made a decision without you. Not because you're wrong. Because expectations exist whether you agree to them or not. That's the boundary most people don't name. Privacy is your right. Signals are your output. They are not the same thing. A signal isn't sharing your life. It's what the environment can pick up with almost no access to you. The way you enter. The way you answer a question. The way you hold the last 5 seconds of a conversation. You can guard your private world and still manage your public footprint. That's not selling out. That's competence. Think about the difference between a meeting and your kitchen. In your kitchen, you can trail off mid-sentence. You can say, "Hold on," and nobody assigns meaning to it. In a meeting, the same "hold on" gets interpreted, not by everyone, but by enough people that it shapes what happens next. Someone fills the silence. Someone reframes your point. Someone decides you're not ready. It's not fair, but it's predictable. And once you admit it's predictable, you stop treating it as an insult. You start treating it as a context. Different contexts demand different clarity, not because you owe anyone access. Because you don't want your goals held hostage by a misunderstanding you could have prevented in 2 seconds. Here's where the tension gets uncomfortable. If you refuse to manage any signal at all, the world will still read one. It just won't be the one you intended. And then you'll call it people being shallow, while quietly paying the price in missed opportunities, friction, and constant correction. Stoicism doesn't ask you to chase a better reputation. It asks you to stop being surprised by human nature. You control your actions. You control your output. You don't control the verdict. That's the clean line. The moment you start trying to force their judgment, you've already lost your center. So the goal isn't to be liked. It's to be clear without begging. To be private without being vague. To be firm without becoming hostile. And if Stoicism is real practice, not a label, it can't just be a vibe you feel. It needs a test. A way to check whether you're acting from principle or acting from avoidance. That's what we're doing next. Most people don't fail at Stoicism because they disagree with it. They fail because they never define what practice would look like on an average Tuesday at 9:40 p.m. when nobody is watching and nothing is on the line. So here's the operational test. 3 questions, not a checklist. A filter you run before you call yourself disciplined. Question 1, would you still do this if no one ever found out? Question 2, does it change your behavior in a measurable way, today, not someday? Question 3, are you willing to pay a small price for it, time, discomfort, or ego, without making a speech about it? If you can't answer yes to at least 2, you don't have a practice. You have a preference. Now watch how the same behavior can be a costume or a tool. 2 people both stay quiet in a tense conversation. One is quiet because they're controlled. The other is quiet because they're afraid of being challenged. Same silence, different motive. One creates clarity. The other creates delay. And the room can feel the difference even if they can't explain it. Same with, I'm unbothered. One person stops arguing because they've chosen their standard and they're done negotiating. Another person stops because they don't have a reason they can defend, so they hide behind calm language. The behavior looks identical from the outside, but the internal posture isn't, and the outcome won't be either. The first person gets quieter and more precise. The second person gets vague and resentful. This is where people turn philosophy into jewelry. They wear the words. They quote Marcus. They post a line. They get the clean moral identity without the friction of change. It becomes philosophy for show. You don't use it to govern decisions. You use it to decorate them after the fact. That's why you can agree with everything and still stay the same person. Here's a quick self-test you can do in 60 seconds. Think about one thing you've been calling stoic this week. Maybe it's not replying. Maybe it's cutting someone off. Maybe it's working alone. Run the filter. If no one could see it, would you still do it? What exactly does it change in the next 24 hours? One message you won't send? One boundary you'll state in one sentence? One task you'll finish before noon? And what's the small cost you'll accept? 10 minutes of discomfort? One awkward pause? One evening without the dopamine of being right? If you don't have a cost, you probably don't have commitment. If you don't have a behavior change, you have a mood. If you only do it when it looks admirable, it's not discipline, it's performance. And that's the real trap. Without criteria, you will confuse agreement with practice. Your brain will give you the reward of I get it and skip the work of I did it. Next, you need a feedback loop, something objective that shows progress. So you can't keep calling it growth when it's just repetition. If you don't measure, your brain will score your progress based on mood. And mood is unstable. One good conversation and you think you've changed. One bad morning and you decide you're back at 0. That's how people quit. Not because the method failed, because the feedback was noise. You're using a storm to judge direction. So you need small data, not spreadsheets. Not a 30-day transformation calendar. A 7-day loop that takes 30 seconds a night and tells you the truth when your feelings don't. Here's the comparison. Feeling is loud, fast, and dramatic. It spikes on Tuesday and collapses on Thursday. Data is quiet. It moves slowly, but it doesn't lie to you. For the next 7 days, pick a fixed time. 9:30 p.m. works. Open notes. 1 line, 3 scores. That's it. Metric 1 is recovery. 0 to 5. 0 means you stayed irritated for hours. 5 means you returned to neutral within 10 minutes. If you want a concrete rule, start your timer when you notice you're activated. Stop it when you can breathe normally and think in full sentences again. Metric 2 is self-interrupt. 0 to 5. 0 means you only noticed after you'd already sent the text, raised your voice, over-explained, or kept the argument alive. 5 means you caught yourself mid-motion, mid-sentence, then stopped. Count 1 clean stop as a win, not 10. 1. Metric 3 is interaction signal, 0 to 5. 0 means you chased approval all day. Fast replies, extra justifications, explaining what you didn't need to explain. 5 means you kept your standard. Fewer words, clearer boundaries, no emotional debt. Use one concrete marker. How many times did you reread your own message before sending it? If it's 3 times or more, that's usually a signal you were negotiating for safety. Write the 3 numbers like this: R3, I2, S4. Then 1 sentence. Biggest trigger today was psycho. Keep it under 12 words. 7 days is enough to see a trend without turning your life into a project. 1 day is too emotional. 30 days is too easy to abandon. 7 gives you direction with low friction. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for drift, up, down, or flat. Now the rule that keeps this system alive. If you miss a day, you don't punish yourself. You don't restart. You do a return entry the next night. Put an asterisk next to the date and write 1 line. Missed yesterday, back today. Then score the 3 metrics anyway. Because discipline doesn't break when you slip. It breaks when you turn a slip into a verdict about who you are. And once you can see your pattern, recovery low but self-interrupt rising, or signal high but recovery collapsing, you'll understand the next problem. The fastest way to destroy discipline is to keep cutting behaviors without replacing the function they were serving. That's what we're doing next. Doomscrolling isn't a bad habit. Complaining isn't a negative personality. Most of the time, they're emergency tools. Not because you're weak, because they work in under 30 seconds. You don't reach for your phone because you love information. You reach for it because it changes your state. Your chest tightens, your mind starts racing, and you grab the fastest lever you know. Same with complaining. It isn't always about the problem, it's about discharge. You want the pressure to move somewhere else. That's the mistake most people make. They try to cut the behavior, but they don't replace the function. So the need stays, the tension stays, and the brain brings the old tool back like it's rescuing you. Here's the shift. The target isn't stop scrolling or stop venting. The target is, what are you trying to get in that moment? Take 5 seconds, literally 5. Before you open the app or start the rant, ask one question. What do I need right now? Pick one of 3. Reassurance, stimulation, release. Reassurance looks like refreshing messages, checking views, checking someone's status, rereading a thread, searching for signs it'll be okay. Stimulation looks like you feel dull, flat, restless, and you want your brain to light up. Release looks like you feel loaded, irritated, and you want to unload it onto words. Once you name the need, you get a clean replacement. Not healthier in theory. Same function. With a stop point. Replacement 1 is for reassurance. The 2-sentence note. Open notes. Write exactly 2 sentences. First, what I'm afraid will happen is. Second, the next step I control. Then you stop. No journaling spiral. 2 sentences. Close it. Replacement 2 is for stimulation. Timed novelty. Set a 10-minute timer. Choose one short stimulus on purpose. 1 video, 1 article, 1 track. When the timer ends, you exit the app. No, one more. You're not quitting stimulation. You're putting it inside a container. Replacement 3 is for release. 60 seconds of body output. Stand up. Set a 60-second timer. Do fast walking in place, wall push-ups, air squats, or shake your arms until your shoulders warm up. Then 1 slow exhale. If you still need words after that, you can speak. But now you're not speaking from a flooded system. You'll notice something uncomfortable. These replacements don't feel as satisfying at first. Doomscrolling feels infinite. Complaining feels righteous. A stop point feels like losing the drug. That's the point. The stop point is what builds control. Now, the relapse rule, because you will relapse. When you catch yourself 20 minutes deep into scrolling, you don't declare the day ruined. You don't make up for it with a punishment routine. You do one move. Cut the remaining time in half, then end with a stop point action. If you've already scrolled for 20 minutes, you set a 10-minute timer and finish it intentionally. Then you do the 2-sentence note, or the 60-second body output. End it clean. Give your brain a door back, not a courtroom. This is what practice looks like, not perfection. A return path. Because the person who actually changes isn't the person who never slips. It's the person who stops letting a slip become an identity. They don't say, I failed. They say, I noticed. I replaced. I returned. Tonight, pick one metric from the 7-day loop and start. Recovery, self-interrupt, or interaction signal. 1 score, 1 line, 30 seconds. You don't need a new personality. You need a system that works when your mood doesn't.